Australia is about to become a true world power. Along with the US and UK, the country will build one of the deadliest, most invincible nuclear-powered conventionally armed submarines in history. And they aren't holding back. With a minimum budget of $245 billion, this would be the largest defense spending in the history of Australia. This quest would single-handedly grow Australia's military might from a lower-tier NATO member to a leading member that could destroy entire countries in minutes. And it's all because of China, which has continued to dare, threaten, and attack Australia. Well, that ends now, as China would likely be more careful if they've been following all this Australian submarine news. In September 2021, Australia, the UK, and US announced a program called AUKUS, which is an abbreviation coined from the initials of the three nations. About 2 weeks ago on March 13th, President Biden of the US, Prime Minister Albanese of Australia, and Prime Minister Sunak of the United Kingdom were at the Point Loma Naval Base in San Diego, California, to discuss the AUKUS program in detail. In addition to the submarines being built by the alliance for both Australia and the UK, the US will also sell 3 of its most powerful submarines, the Virginia-class submarines, to Australia, with an option to go up to 5 should the need arise. This would either deter a Chinese threat or counter it, pending when the new submarine class enters service. The new submarine class, known as SSN AUKUS, is also well underway and has grown quite mature. About 70% mature, according to Vice Admiral Jonathan Meade, the head of Australia's AUKUS task force. On completion, the submarines of the class will operate as the largest attack submarines ever fielded by the navies of both Australia and the UK. And that's a first. Never before has a nuclear-powered submarine been developed for simultaneous use by 2 navies pooling resources, experience, and designs. Currently, the UK provides the bulk of the experience and design, seeing as the new submarines are based on the UK's next-generation SSNR nuclear attack submarine, which is what evolved into the SSN AUKUS. In 2018, the UK began a project to replace its Astute-class submarines in service and those yet to be completed. This project was originally known as the Maritime Underwater Future Capability, but later renamed the Submersible Ship Nuclear Replacement, or SSNR for short. To kickstart the SSNR effort, the UK Ministry of Defence awarded an initial $234 million, equally split between BAE Systems and Rolls-Royce, for both companies to think about the kinds of capabilities that the new SSNR-class submarines could wield. It was all going smooth, gentle, rosy, and as planned until China decided to be a little too aggressive to ignore, invading sovereign territory and firing laser beams at foreign aircraft. And of all the countries to be aggressive towards, China picked the one country that has the perfect, most friendly alliance with the US and UK. To these united world powers, Australia must be protected at all costs, and would now make the country a world power rivaled only by them. In March 2023, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak announced that the UK would boost defence spending by an additional $6 billion over the next 2 years, with the AUKUS program expected to benefit from this. It was also in March 2023 that the UK's SSNR project was renamed the SSN AUKUS, that would now build powerful nuclear submarines for not just the UK, but Australia too, with nuclear propulsion, vertical launch systems, and other technologies contributed by the US. This would make Australia the second country in history after the UK to gain access to US nuclear submarine technology. Regarding the vertical launch systems, the US and UK were already working on those under the development of another UK in-the-works submarine class, the Dreadnought-class SSBNs. These vertical launch systems would generally be nuclear capable. However, President Biden made it clear as day that the AUKUS submarines that Australia receives will not be nuclear armed, only nuclear powered. The submarines will not have any nuclear weapons of any kind on them. According to him, Australia is a proud non-nuclear weapons state, and it's committed to stay that way. Vice Admiral Meade also addressed nuclear-related fears in Australia, particularly on the safety of having nuclear technology in the land. He answers that both the US and UK have an unblemished record with their over 500 nuclear reactors in the last 7 decades, which have powered 149 million miles of travel. That's 300 times the journey to the moon and back. This effectiveness is ensured by the highest standards of safety, and Australia, according to Vice Deputy Meade, will uphold them. In addition to that safety measure, it was revealed that the nuclear reactors to power the Australian submarines will arrive in the country welded, shielded, and sealed, not to be opened over the 3-decade lifespans of the submarines. That would imply a retirement from service around the 2070s, since the Australian SSN-AUKUS submarines are expected to enter service in the 2040s to replace the country's Collins-class submarines. The UK would have the first of their SSN-AUKUS submarines a decade earlier, though, in the 2030s, since the country already has the infrastructure to build nuclear submarines. Australia at the moment doesn't, but the UK and US are committed to helping Australia develop its own indigenous manufacturing capability. This development will be such a huge one that it's expected to provide 20,000 jobs over the next 30 years, with 8,500 people being directly employed in Australia's submarine building and servicing department. However, all of these Australian developments are at least 2 decades into the future, but the country needs a submarine fleet improvement as soon as now. For this reason, the US will make a delivery to Australia in the 2030s of its most advanced submarines, the Virginia-class submarines. Representing her class, enter USS Virginia, the first of the Virginia-class submarines and the first U.S. Navy submarine to be completely designed on a computer. USS Virginia is a nuclear-powered cruise missile fast-attack submarine built by the Electric Boat Division of General Dynamics. She was delivered to the Navy in 2004, but wouldn't spend much time enjoying her new home, as just 1 year after, she would be deployed to support the global war on terrorism, where she showcased her might in stealth, reconnaissance, and weapons system technology, a result of millions of hours of relentless labor. In fact, by 2007, approximately 35 million labor hours had already been spent to design the Virginia-class. Constructing a single Virginia-class submarine required around 9 million labor hours and over 4,000 suppliers, resulting in a submarine with a whopping $3.45 billion price tag as of 2021. However, one reason for this insanely high cost is that the USS Virginia, being the first of the class, missed out on some cost reduction and optimization courses which, for a program that cost $29 billion, were far too important. USS Virginia and her siblings all have a 25-knot top speed on the surface and an Olympic gold-winning 35 knots underwater. They're able to swim stealthily quiet at 25 knots. This American dominance in the mobility department is thanks to a General Electric SG-9 nuclear reactor, which can run for more than 30 years without having to refuel. In terms of weaponry, the Virginia-class wields 65 missiles and torpedoes in total. These include the UGM-84 sub-harpoon missile, whose primary hobby is to put boats below water, the novel anti-ship and land attack dual-purpose Tomahawk that's highly lethal and maneuverable with its ability to change course and enable new target corrections in flight, and then the Mark 48 advanced capability heavyweight guided torpedoes that do what all heavyweight guided torpedoes do: destroy any target in sight, however big. These targets are spotted with relative ease by the submarines thanks to being fitted with the most advanced sensor suite the U.S. has to offer. These include a team of a U-shaped large aperture bow sonar, lightweight wide aperture arrays on the port and starboard flanks, a TB-29 towed passive array for rearward detection, and a high-frequency sonar array mounted on the sail and chin to detect and avoid the all-too-destructive sea mines. However, when the submarines aren't disintegrating targets, searching for them, or evading sea mines, they are able to eavesdrop for intelligence or insert teams of Navy SEALs or other special forces, thanks to an advanced handling system that improves their ability to perform well close to the shore. This spying style of operation is enabled by an unimaginable level of stealth for submarines, which is enabled by overall propulsion quietness, urethane tiles applied to the hull to dampen internal sound and absorb rather than reflect sonar pulses, and then software systems that monitor and reduce electromagnetic signatures when needed. The Virginia-class is a stealthy, quick, sensitive, and heavily armed class of submarines that most would consider the Navy's version of the best thing since sliced bread. And soon, Australia would have a fleet of these American submarines to call their own. Australian naval personnel are already embedded in the U.S. military's nuclear propulsion school, who will likely be tasked with returning to Australia to train the future generation of sailors that will operate the Virginia-class submarines. After a decade of service in Australia, the Virginia-class submarines will be joined by the SSN-AUKUS submarines, all working hand-in-hand, side-by-side, and missile-by-missile to send a clear message to China that Australia would not be messed with. And another message to the rest of the world: